An original Discman chassis. I haven't seen one of these since the Great Data Purge of 2112. Back when the Central Archives fried half the sector's solid-state drives. Look at this mechanism. It's completely mechanical. A physical lid with a spring-loaded latch that relies entirely on kinetic pressure. No neural handshake required to open it. No biometric scan. You just push right here on this little ridges marked corner. And there it is, the optical assembly. Look at that tiny glass lens sitting on its miniature tracking rail. It looks so fragile, like the eye of a robotic insect. It's hard to believe that 90, maybe 100 years ago, people used to carry these around in their jackets, skipping down the concrete walkways, while a physical beam of focused light read digital zeros and ones off of a spinning piece of foil. Set that heavy leather binder right down here. Let's see what kind of data you managed to salvage from the lower level ruins. Oh wow. This is a gold mine. It's an actual, honest to God sleeve catalog. Let me put on my nylon handling gloves. The oils from our skin can eat through the protective lacquer on some of these older discs if we're not careful. Let's pull this first one out. Look at the ink on this label. It's completely faded, but you can still make out the silver holographic stamping underneath. Oh, this one's ancient. The date stamp on the inner ring says 2111. No, wait. My optical enhancer is misreading the decay. It says 2012. 2012. It's well over a century ago. The artist's name is barely legible. The neon architecture. I think they were an underground analog synth collective from the old Pacific Northwest before the coastline shifted. Back then, music wasn't just beamed straight into your temporal lobe to match your current adrenaline levels. You couldn't just think of a mood and have an algorithm compose a track for you in real time. People had to sit in a room with wooden instruments and heavy, primitive microchips, vibrating the actual air molecules around them until it sounded like the inside of their chest. It's a completely different philosophy of sound. Let's see if the laser on this unit can even register the track format. You hear that little snap? That's the ball-bearing hub holding it in place. If it's even a fraction of a millimeter off center, the rotational balance goes entirely to hell, and the laser loses track of the spiral groove. Let's close the lid. I'm going to hook up this external audio converter to my desktop grid. We have to bypass the internal amplifier because the old copper capacitors inside this casing are probably completely dried up and hollowed out by time. If I push current through them, they'll just hum like a dying drone. Alright, let's spin the drive motor up. Look through the little translucent window on the lid. See it spinning. It sounds like a tiny, trapped hurricane. The diagnostic screen over here is trying to read the table of contents. It's searching the inner ring of the foil. There it goes. Track 1. 42 minutes total runtime. I'm just documenting this find in my personal log. The sector authorities don't really care about physical audio media anymore. They're too busy tracking illegal quantum decryption keys. But it's always good to keep these entries off the main grid. Let's look at the rest of this binder while that track buffers into the shop's local cache. Now these ones further back, these are much different. Look at the coloration on these discs. They aren't silver. They have that deep, iridescent purple and gold tint. This is definitely late 2080s tech. See the logo? Vaporbyte Records. This was right during the peak of the second cyber renaissance, just before the corporate blackout. Here's a copy of The Ghost of New Tokyo by a producer who went by the alias Vector Zero. I actually remember hearing stories about this specific album when I was just an apprentice patching wires in the sub-basements. The artist didn't use human vocals at all. They harvested the ambient radio static from old communication satellites that were falling out of orbit and translated the radiation spikes into musical chords. It was incredibly popular among the nocturnal maintenance crews who worked the high-altitude atmospheric platforms. They said if you listened to it while looking down at the city clouds, it felt like the world was spinning backwards. It's strange to think that all of that culture, all of that noise and late-night energy is reduced to a handful of reflective plastic circles sitting in a dusty binder on my workbench. Well, it's stock value, because I know you didn't risk getting picked up by a perimeter sweep just to watch me turn old plastic under a desk lamp. The collectors who come down from the upper cloud spires, they don't usually care about the 2080s stuff. To them, the 80s are just yesterday. They want the early century artifacts. They want that 2012 disc with the faded ink and the raw, unpolished human errors in the mixing. If I buy this entire lot from you right now, the player, the adapter cables, and the full sleeve index, I can offer you 2,500 credits on a certified corporate ledger token. Or if you prefer to keep your transaction off the data streams, I can give you 1,800 in physical brass chits and a couple of clean, unmapped battery cells for your cyber rig. Take your time, there's no rush. The rain outside isn't letting up anytime soon, and the enforcer drones don't like flying down in this low visibility sector when the downpour gets this heavy. It messes with their optical sensors. You want the chits and the battery cells, and you want to leave the 2012 disc inside the player so you can listen to it while I count out your coin. You've got a romantic streak in you, don't you? Most people who come through that door just want to scrub their tracking numbers and buy enough synthetic stims to get through their next factory shift. It's rare to find someone who wants to actually hear the history they're carrying. Let me adjust the master gain on the audio monitor. There, I've routed the signal through an old tube preamplifier I salvaged from a crashed luxury shuttle last spring. It adds this incredibly soft, velvety warmth to the high frequencies. Listen to that background hiss. That isn't a defect in the file. That's the sound of the world before everything became completely synchronized and clean. In the early days, they couldn't eliminate every single molecule of interference. Every recording carried the phantom signature of the room it was born in. The hum of the lights, the distant traffic, the breath of the person standing near the microphone. Our world today is so perfectly rendered, so endlessly corrected by AI subroutines, that we've forgotten what it feels like to touch something that can actually degrade, something that can get scratched, something that can fail. Maybe that's why these old discs feel so comforting to look at. They don't want to live forever in a cloud network. They just want to spin right here under a warm light until the laser finally fades away. Here's your currency. The brass is clean, no corporate tracking chips embedded in the rims. And here are your 2 power cells, fully conditioned and holding a steady 12-volt baseline.